Welcome to the first episode of VCV Rack in a nutshell, a series of short videos where I introduce certain modules to you fast and to the point. Envelopes. Envelopes play an important role in generative music. Therefore, a complete, flexible and versatile envelope construction kit cannot be overestimated. In VCV Rack we find such a kit in the collection of DHE modules. Let's start with the booster stage module. The principle reads: booster stage creates a CV development which starts at the level of the input here and ends at the level which is adjusted with the level knob here above. We can get this CV development at the output jack, of course. If there isn't anything, like now, if there isn't anything patched in the in-jack, booster stage interprets that as a level of 0 volt. There are two interpretations of level bipolar and unipolar. Bipolar means a maximum voltage range from -5 to +5 volt, and unipolar means a maximum voltage range from 0 volt to +10 volt. This means, for example, if nothing is plugged in the in-jack and the module is switched to unipolar, as it is right now, the curve starts at 0 and goes up to 10 volts. Let's trigger. Yeah, up to 10 volts. But when it is switched to bipolar, let me switch it to bipolar now, then the curve starts at 0 as well. Nothing is patched in. The in-jack means level of 0 volt, but goes up only to +5 volts. Let's show this. To +5 volt. As long as there is no positive level patched into the defer input jack, I'll come to defer a bit later, the curve and the output follows the movement of the knob's life. I'll talk about curve and duration a bit later. High-quality ebooks about making music, sound design, professional music production. Each ebook includes hundreds of synthesizer patches to deepen what you are reading and legions of videos to illustrate it even more. Click the link below in the description to learn more about Rofel Media ebooks, your gateway to serious music making. To get a CV development, a curve at all, we need to trigger the module by pushing the trigger button manually or using an external trigger source, for example the square wave of an LFO. There are two types of curves we can adjust. They are called S and J curve. A J curve is logarithmic when the knob is turned to the left. Let me show this. So we have a logarithmic development here, and it's exponential when I turn the knob to the right. An exponential development. An S curve starts either with a logarithmical shape and changes to an exponential shape when I put the knob to the left. Starts logarithmical and then goes to exponential, or the other way around, starts exponential and goes over to a logarithmic development. The duration means how long the booster stage module needs to finish one complete cycle, so one curve. This duration has three ranges. In the lowest and fastest one, the maximum time is 1 second. Then we have the maximum time of 10 seconds, and then we have the maximum time of 100 seconds, quite long. Back to curves. The curves can go so steep, or can be set so steep, that we have only peaks when we turn it to the left and to the right side. And we get even square waves with the S curve when we adjust the curve knob completely to the right. It's not so with the J curve. Time to have a look at trigger, end of cycle, active and defer. The function of trigger and end of cycle should be clear, but what about defer? What does the defer function really do? Well, it takes the level, which is currently at the input, and reaches it through to the output without any further manipulations. All tweakings of the knobs, all additional trigger pulses, all of this is ignored or bypassed. We get the output exactly that way as it is in the input. In case booster stage is generating a curve and has not finished this curve and it gets a defer pulse, external or by pushing the button here, it abandons the unfinished curve at once, takes the level from the input and reaches it through to the output. Let me do it manually. It goes at once to 0 after pushing the defer because there is nothing in the input. So the level of the input which is reached to the output is the 0 level. Let me trigger manually and defer manually. One thing left to mention concerning the knob parameters: after finishing a curve, the level at the output stays at the amount that is adjusted with the level knob here and doesn't fall back to the level of the input. Let me show it, trigger, and then it stays at the level what is adjusted and doesn't fall back to 0. The active output delivers a high gate signal as long as the booster stage is either creating a curve or deferring the input's level to the output. Well, and the end of cycle output delivers or sends a pulse when the curve is finished. The red curve here is the pulse, the end of cycle output, and the green one is the curve itself. Well, let me remove the LFO. When we patch the end of cycle output to the trigger input, let me do so, then we only need to manually push the trigger button to make booster stage loop. All right. And because it's looping, the active button sends all the time a high level. The stage module is the smaller brother of the booster stage module. All parameters, jacks and knobs of stage work the same way as they do with the booster stage, only that there are less parameters and the existing parameters have less options. The shape of the curve is always a J shape, and the maximum duration is 10 seconds. The minimum duration is 10 milliseconds. The levels are always unipolar, and there are no push buttons at the jacks defer and trigger, and it's the same with the output jacks active and EOC, no buttons. If we want to trigger stage manually, let me remove the LFO. If we want to trigger stage manually, we have to use external button modules, for example, the DHA module buttons. Or the DHA module upstage. Otherwise, the overall functionality is identical to this of booster stage. In the next video of this series, I introduce the modules upstage and hostage to you and construct a number of complex envelopes. Okay, stay tuned, subscribe and hit the bell. Have a great day. Rolf.